She'd been married for 23 years and never owned a home. Tonight, she had $500,000 still on her board and an offer of $138,000 staring her in the face. The smart move seemed obvious, but Karen Van didn't come here to play it safe. What she did next had the entire studio holding their breath and the ending. You will not believe it. Karen Van is a part-time notary public, a housewife, and a brand new grandma for the very first time. She's been married to her husband Anthony for 23 years, and in all that time, they've never once purchased a house. Not once. They've rented apartments, they've moved around, they've made it work on tight budgets, but owning their own home, that dream has always been just barely out of reach. Tonight, Karen walked onto that deal or no deal stage with one clear mission: win enough money to finally buy her family a house. She brought her whole crew with her. Anthony, her husband of 23 years, was right there in the front row. Their daughter Nicole was beside him, along with little baby Anthony, the grandson who had just made Karen a first-time grandma. Howie took one look at the whole family and couldn't resist. He called them the minivans, and the minivans were ready for the biggest ride of their lives. Karen picked case number 14. She'd thought about it, she'd planned it, and when the moment came, she called it with confidence. Dawn brought the case down to the podium, Karen set it in front of her, and the game was officially on. Karen came out swinging. Her first picks were nearly perfect, and whatever was inside came off the low end of the board. Then case 3, held by Lisa, revealed just 1 penny. The lowest amount in the entire game, gone. That is exactly the kind of start you dream about. Cases 18, 22, and 6 followed, all clearing relatively small amounts off the board without touching anything significant. Her last pick of the round was case 25, held by Angel, which revealed $5,000, another small amount. Karen was visibly excited. Howie even joked that he'd never seen someone so thrilled about not having $5,000. But she was right to celebrate. After 6 cases, the board looked incredible. Every major amount from $200,000 all the way up to $1 million was still in play. The game was wide open, and Karen had all the leverage. The banker made the first call. $21,000. Karen looked at the offer, looked up at that board still loaded with big numbers, and didn't even hesitate. She hadn't come all this way, hadn't waited 23 years for a house, just to accept $21,000.
Enough! No deal!
No deal. 5 cases to open, and this is where the game started punching back hard. Case 15 was first, and the number hit the screen, $750,000. Gone. The second biggest amount in the entire game, wiped off the board in a single reveal. The crowd groaned. Karen's face tightened, but she held it together. The million was still there. She could still recover. But then came case 10. Marissa opened it. $1 million. The top prize in the game, eliminated. In back-to-back cases, Karen had just watched $750,000 and $1 million disappear from her board. The 2 biggest numbers in the entire game gone in the same round. That's the kind of devastation that breaks even the strongest players. The crowd went quiet. Anthony shifted in his seat. The energy in the room completely changed. The remaining cases in the round were kinder. Case 24 was small. Case 2 held just $750, and Case 20 was a manageable loss. But the damage from those first 2 reveals was catastrophic. The biggest amount left on the entire board was now $500,000. That one number was carrying the entire game on its back. The banker's second offer came in at $37,000. Karen looked at her family. Anthony didn't mince words. Babe, $37,000 isn't going to do it. Nicole nodded in agreement. Even baby Anthony seemed unfazed. The minivans weren't stopping here. No deal. 4 cases to open, and the mission was crystal clear: to protect the $500,000 at all costs. Everything else on that board was negotiable, but the $500,000 had to survive. Karen picked case 26 first. Pilar opened it safe. Then case 11. Jill opened it safe again. Case 4 came next, and then case 16. Each case opened, and each time, the amount that came off was something small, something manageable, something that didn't touch the $500,000. By the end of the round, $500,000 was still sitting there on the board, still alive, still shining, still keeping Karen's dream of owning a home very much intact. The banker offered $53,000. It was a real step up from the last offer, and Howie made sure Karen understood the math. Only 3 case amounts on the board were worth more than what the banker was putting on the table. This was serious money, a calculated risk either way. Karen thought about it for a moment, looked at that $500,000 still glowing on the board, and said, "That sounds really, really good, but not good enough."
But not good enough. No deal!
No deal, the crowd roared. 3 cases this round. Karen picked cases 9, 7, and 1. Claudia, Sarah, and Melinda each opened their cases, and once again, the $500,000 survived. Karen was navigating this game with remarkable instincts. Every round, she dodged the landmine. Every round, the $500,000 stayed. And the offers kept climbing. The banker's 4th offer, $77,000. The highest number he'd put on the table all night. Howie leaned in and gave Karen a direct warning. If she knocked out the $500,000 in the next round, the offer was going to plummet. He told her this could be a once-in-a-lifetime decision. The weight of that statement hung in the air. Karen's husband Anthony was quiet now. Nicole was watching intently. The whole studio was holding its breath. And Karen, the woman who'd never owned a house, who'd been renting for 23 years, who came here tonight to change her family's life. She looked at Howie and delivered a line that defined her entire game. "I still have 2 big amounts up there, and as long as they're showing, I'm going." No deal. 2 cases to open. The stakes were enormous. Karen picked case 21 first. Tamika opened it a small amount. Safe. The crowd let out a collective breath. 1 more to go. Case 13. Layla held it. Karen believed in this number. She'd met Anthony on June 19th, and the number had always carried a certain kind of magic for her. She told Howie the story, and you could see her believing, truly believing, that 13 was going to be kind to her. Layla opened the case. $300,000 gone. One of the bigger remaining amounts eliminated. The $500,000 survived, but Karen's so-called lucky number had just cost her dearly. The banker smelled blood. The offer dropped to $63,000, down from $77,000. Howie reminded Karen that she'd turned down more money in the last round. The trend was moving in the wrong direction, but Karen looked at that $500,000, still alive, still anchoring the board, and once again said no deal. 1 case to open. Karen picked case 19, tied to the day she met Anthony. Her truly lucky number. And this time, the luck delivered. The case held a small amount. $500,000 was still on the board. Karen had dodged the landmine again. Now, think about this for a second. Karen Van, who's never owned a home in 23 years of marriage, has $500,000 still on her board. The banker is about to call. What would you do? The banker called. $138,000. Let that number sink in. $138,000. Cash guaranteed. Enough to buy that house she'd been dreaming about since before her daughter was born. Enough to change the trajectory of the entire minivan family. Howie could barely contain himself. The crowd was on their feet, screaming at her to take it. Anthony was pacing back and forth, and Karen Van looked at the board one more time, took a breath, and said no deal. She turned down $138,000. 1 case to open, just 1. And there was exactly 1 landmine left the $500,000. Amy opened the case. $500,000, the biggest number on the board gone. The one number that had been carrying Karen's entire game, the number she'd been protecting for round after round after round, disappeared in a single, devastating reveal. Karen did her nervousness dance, this anxious little shuffle she did whenever the pressure peaked. Anthony was standing now, the crowd was silent, and the banker's offer crashed to earth. $17,000, from $138,000 to $17,000. The collapse was total, but Karen Van wasn't done. She turned down $17,000 and opened one more case.
You know what, I may as well go for it. Let's go.
Case 5. Crystal held it. The board narrowed down to its final configuration. 2 amounts remained, $500 and $50,000. Karen's case held one of them. The remaining case on stage held the other. A 50-50 shot. The banker's final offer, $25,000. Right in the middle. A guaranteed split. Howie laid it out in the simplest possible terms. Walk away with $25,000 right now. Or gamble on a coin flip. Heads, she gets $50,000. Tails, she goes home with $500. The woman who turned down $138,000 was now staring at a 50-50 gamble for a fraction of that amount. Karen looked at Anthony. She looked at Nicole. She looked at baby Anthony sleeping in Nicole's arms. And for the first time all night, after turning down every single offer the banker had thrown at her, Karen Van pressed that red button. Deal. $25,000. Howie opened case 14. $500. Karen had been sitting on $500 the entire time. The case she chose at the very beginning, the case she'd been guarding and protecting all night long, had held just $500 from the very first moment she picked it up. If she'd turned down that last offer, she would have gone home with $500 instead of $25,000. The crowd erupted. Howie told her she made a great deal, and he was absolutely right. It wasn't the million-dollar ending she'd walked in dreaming about. It wasn't even close to the $138,000 she'd turned down just minutes ago. But $25,000 real dollars in your pocket when your case held just $500? That's a win. That's the banker's money in her hands. Not a coin flip away from heartbreak. Karen Van played an emotional, gutsy, sometimes reckless game, but in the end, she finally knew when to stop.